Hi, welcome to today's Marketing Brew virtual event. My name is Kelsey Sutton, and I'm the Deputy Editor for Marketing Brew. I'm so thrilled that you've joined us today. I'm really excited today. We're covering all things connected TV or CTV strategy, new tools and opportunities, and everything in between. And I'm really excited to be joined today by someone who's living and breathing this stuff and making decisions about it every day. And that is John Speranza, the Chief Marketing Officer for Freshpet. John, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kelsey.
So, if it's all right with you, John, I love to jump right in. We have a long and a really interesting conversation planned. But first, I just want to give our audience a sense of you. So, John, can you tell us how long you've been with Freshpet?
Sure. Been with Freshpet for about 7.5 years now. When we started, we were around $100 million business, and we've scaled to over 650 million in sales, and we're in now over 10 million households, pet parent households. So it's been a wild ride. And over that time, I've adopted 2 dogs and a cat. So pretty fulfilling.
So, the marketing is working, not just in feeding them, but actually just acquiring new pets.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about Freshpet, John, and particularly what it's aiming to solve for in the market, how you kind of view Freshpet as a product?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that question, Kelsey. So, it's a classic disruptor story. The pet food category is massive. It's $50 billion in retail sales. It hasn't changed in over 70 years, and so Freshpet has set out to really disrupt the category. And what we've realized is when you think about how we eat, our food philosophy, our lifestyle, we're all eating fresher, healthier, less processed foods. And yet the establishment, the dry food that's out there, is kind of stuck in kind of old world. And so we believe, and our mission is really to strengthen the bond between pet parents and their pets to live longer, healthier, happier lives. And we do that through the power of fresh food.
Yeah, awesome. Well, since you have been overseeing the marketing strategy for Freshpet since you joined 7 years ago, I imagine it has changed a lot in that time, particularly with the scale that you kind of gave us a sense of. Can you walk me through Freshpet's marketing strategy? And I know that's such a big topic, so I want to kind of start with what it looked like when you kind of joined, what it looked like then, and what it's evolved into, and what are some of the biggest changes you've made over in that overarching marketing strategy over those years?
Yeah, sure. So, Kelsey, to be honest, the strategy itself hasn't changed. Our approach to marketing has, but our strategy really is first and foremost the consumer, and start with the consumer and how do we really learn about the insights around their belief system on food, and as a result, kind of how they view their pet and the food that they're choosing. From there, starting at the consumer, we go into how what's that key insight? What's the big unlock that currently right now is not being met? And then our value proposition for Freshpet, how does that solve that unmet need? We then spend a lot of time focusing on where their attention is. Where are these pet parents, these 10 million pet parents we currently have in our franchise? And how do we ensure that when they decide to give us their attention, we're front and center, and we're providing valuable pieces of content, valuable brand building initiatives that not only will drive trial, but drive hopefully loyalty and advocacy coming out of it. And when I first joined, so now the strategy hasn't changed, but like I said, our approach and our tactics have. We are still, right, when you're creating a new category, you think about how do you concept sell this new behavior. And for us, it was how do we concept sell this idea of fresh pet food to the masses. We are traditionally brick and mortar. So right now we're able to be found over 30,000 stores nationwide, in addition to some online presence as well. But we needed to drive this new way of feeding nationwide. And so we used upper funnel, mass reach tactics in addition to then lower funnel conversion tactics. So digital started to play a much bigger role as we grew up over time. We're still growing up. We're not a puppy, but we're certainly not a senior dog. We're somewhere in between. But we still lean pretty heavily on upper funnel, linear, and OTT connected TV tactics.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you brought up linear TV and OTT, and I really want to dig in there since this is what our conversation is primarily about. So, when did Fresh Pet start marketing on TV? When did it become apparent that that was sort of essential part of the marketing mix? And yeah, what did that approach look like when you started dipping your toes into the TV space?
Sure. It actually started a little bit before my time here, quite frankly. It started, I want to say roughly 2014, and I joined in 2017. And where we saw, I guess, the initial stages of progress was when we would um, be on linear, we would start to look at traffic to freshpet.com. We would start to look at retail sales in store. And was there a lift? Was there a consumer response? Were they so engaged and intrigued about feeding fresh food that they were checking us out on our website? Were we doing a good enough job there where we were convincing them to find it in the store near them and go to the store and make a purchase? And in the beginning stages, that was pretty much the blunt approach we used, and I mean that in a good way. It performed, but we knew that over time, and as digital became more and more of an upfront, and as you could get finer around audiences on a broad-reaching media tactic like connected TV, how do you begin to kind of make these complementary and start to see that when you do one, you get a certain result. When you do two, both, you get outsized results. And that's been our experimentation. Honestly, every week we're trying to think about new ways to engage a broader audience around fresh pet food, and doing so both upper funnel and lower funnel.
Yeah, you mentioned experimentation, and I wanted to see if you could expand on
Sure.
that a little bit. How do you structure those tests, particularly when we're looking at linear TV or connected TV? How do you kind of
Yeah.
structure them? How do you evaluate whether they're working? Is it outcomes based, like you said, looking for lift, looking for that, or is it something else? And how do you adjust your marketing plan accordingly?
Yeah, great question. It's here's a not so great answer. It's kind of a little bit of both. We do try to stay rigid on outcome based. So if we're going to spend $1, what do we believe we'll get in return? And whether that's an incremental household coming to purchase Freshpet, whether that's a sales lift story, whether that's what people are seeing our content and they're actually completing the view. And we start to look at what is it costing us to reach that consumer. So I think just for the audience, like if you try to simplify it into who are you trying to reach, how much is it costing you to reach that consumer, and when you do get in front of them, what is the message you're conveying? And we try to kind of optimize that mix across all of the tactics that we leverage. OTT and connected TV was quite frankly a test a couple of years ago. We knew that we needed, like, what an interesting way of importing an audience, a very targeted audience. So the benefits of digital with the reach and scale of a linear kind of play. And we looked at it a myriad of different ways on what that return was, and it proved out and continues to prove out to be a really effective way in combination with linear to get in front of the right audience with the right message, the right amount of times, to drive the business and to help more pets be fed fresh pet.
Yeah. I cover TV and streaming here at Marketing Brew, and something I hear over and over is that CTV has the sort of measurement capabilities of digital with the the big screen effect that TV has, and it also has the opportunity to have the same sort of level of creative excellence of linear TV. I wonder, when you sort of started testing OTT and CTV, what prompted that test? What kind of audiences are you reaching in those environments that maybe you're not reaching so much in linear? And how do you think about, I guess, how that space is evolving and how the opportunities in that channel are changing?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you know this probably better than anybody. When you think about viewership and attention, I connected TV has now overtaken linear. And so when you think about kind of that 18-year-old plus, and you think about enabling a message in front of them, a straight up linear play is not enough for what we're trying to accomplish as a brand and as a business. And so when we set out to venture into the connected TV world, it was, an opportunity to reach an audience perhaps that has cut the cord, and we're not really serving them as best as we can, just being straight up on linear. So as you think about strategy and you think about reaching the right audience, and reaching them enough times, right? One time is never enough. And arguably sometimes, 10 can be too many, but how do you find that sweet spot? And how do you find that way to engage and get in front of the right consumer at the right time to tell your message, and the right frequency as well? So we try to balance it in combination. Like I said, we view the world as an and, not an or. It's not either one. It is both. And for, I guess, the audience, thinking about, are you going after those cord cutters? Are you going after those light TV viewers who maybe saw you once on TV, but you'll definitely find a way to engage them on connected TV? Those are all big considerations to think about, especially when you're trying to map out your growth strategy and your growth plan for the future.
Yeah, definitely. I want to get a little bit in the weeds here, John, and I just want
Sure.
to know, do you buy connected TV mostly programmatically? Do you buy it mostly directly? The answer might be a little bit of both, but how has that changed? And I guess, how do you weigh one approach over the other? I know you just said it's an and, not an or, so I don't
Yeah.
want to put you in a box, but I'd love to hear kind of how you explore those options that you have in that space.
Yeah, great question. So we do both. So from a direct standpoint, we find, let me back up. It is again around who your consumer is and the target you're trying to reach. And so there are some direct buys we'll do, because you know what, these platforms have scale for the target that we're trying to reach. And so as a result, it's the most efficient and effective way to get in front of that consumer, from our side. We do also participate in programmatic. And when you think about um, how fragmented that world is, across multiple platforms, how do we, because we're still a small brand, we're still a small company, so we need to leverage technology in order to get kind of that broader reach across multiple fragmented platforms. We'll use programmatic for that. Another benefit of the direct approach that we've found is there's also considerable value adds included in that. So when you think about this testing culture we have, and you think about how do we A/B test certain creative, how do we think about brand lift studies? Those are great opportunities that I think, your audience, if they're weighing kind of one or the other, or doing both, um, thinking about kind of the all in, not just the consumer target and the reach, but also what are some of those other things that you can garner some serious learnings on that make you better in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask kind of a big picture question, John, which is, how do
Sure.
you evaluate TV buying? And I'm going to bucket this all together, linear and CTV kind of in one, compared to other marketing channels that are not video, I guess.
Hmm.
How do you I guess how does that ebb and flow work for you and for Freshpet, depending on the goals, depending on the audiences that you're trying to reach?
Yeah, our ultimate measure of success is household penetration. Are we having more and more people join the fresh food movement through Freshpet? And so that is our ultimate outcome at the end. When we think about our marketing approach and our communications approach, it is kind of the how do you drive awareness that we exist and this is what we're all about, education on why feeding fresh is best and why fresh pet is the preferred choice, and then kind of the consideration and purchase and I want to go buy, how do I buy fresh pet? And so that is kind of how we think about it. Each tactic and each tool across digital and linear, we weigh differently. You know, like if I were to weigh, and this is more kind of I guess conceptual in nature, if I were to just look straight at a CPM standpoint, there are some tactics that will win the day, and it's the most efficient, the cheapest way to get reach, and that's what we're going to put all of our dollars to. There's other tactics. If you look at it from a cost per completed view, it starts to steer you in a different direction. And what we try to balance is that, and it's a tension we are constantly optimizing, and we have a great partner that also works with us in doing this. Is thinking about the dollar spent. Is this going towards reach? Is it going towards nurturing people down the funnel, or is it solely for conversion? And how do we think about attribution and investment choices across that? I will say I know you asked non-video, but we're still the beauty of video is we're able to really tell our story, especially when we're a relatively unknown brand and unknown proposition. We have about a 50% brand awareness, and our goal is to be much higher than that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's good news for brands like Freshpet that there has been so much growth in the streaming space, which I wanted to get your thoughts on, John. I mean, I could just rattle off all the ad-supported tiers of premium services we have. There's a ton of growth in fast, free
Yeah,
ad-supported television. There's just so much growth in ad-supported video and ad-supported premium video. What are your thoughts on the growth that we've seen, the opportunity there for brands like Freshpet, but also what needs to change, I guess, as that continues to grow, as that space continues to kind of mature and see more
yeah.
scale?
No, Kelsey, that's a great question. First off, I love the fact that the consumer has more choice and more options to consume content. I love it. It puts a little bit more emphasis on the content we're sharing and the quality of that and the breadth of that. But when you think about fast, and I think overall, the overarching kind of comment that I'll make is it's so fragmented right now. It's very difficult. And so now I'll go right into the like, what would I love to see? This like unifying of a consumer across all of these segments or all of these fragmented platforms would be great for a marketer and for an advertiser. There's an opportunity here to really be value add to the consumer. I'm sure we've all had that experience where you've seen the same ad multiple times, almost to the point of like, it almost drives, I can't stand that brand anymore, to is there a way to really provide value and tell the story throughout the journey for consumers? And to me, the opportunity there is being able to see that whole consumer experience map, and making sure that our message is relevant wherever they are in that journey. And that to me would be a great value add for us as marketers and advertisers.
Yeah. Do you think that, I mean, are you optimistic about the progress, the efforts that have been made? I mean, there's been a lot of effort, a lot of
Yeah.
conversation about how do we unify? How do we measure audiences? How do we
Yeah.
track who's seen what? I mean, measurement is a huge topic, but
Sure.
how do you feel? Are you optimistic about where we're going? How
Look,
fast we're moving in that direction?
I'm a marketer, so hope springs eternal for me. So I always am glass half full. But right now, I think from a measurement standpoint, there's kind of one strong player in town, and I think the progress we're seeing from some of the other um, new companies coming out and showing new capabilities to kind of map it more from a consumer across all of those touch points. It's promising. I think there's still a lot of heavy lifting to be done, and the de facto standard is what we have. But I do, to answer your question, I do remain hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to kind of stitch this together and measure it from a full consumer experience standpoint. I just hope it's sooner rather than later. As a marketer, there's a sense of urgency.
Yeah, well, John, I do not think you are alone in having that sentiment, but I like that you say hope springs eternal in this space. I
Yep.
wanted to ask you, you talked about kind of CPMs a little earlier, just kind of about how
Sure.
you use that to evaluate where to go. And I wanted to ask about TV affordability. Again, huge space. There's lots of places where it costs a lot more, places where it costs less.
Yeah.
But overall, John, is TV becoming more affordable or less affordable for marketers? Where do you see that trend line heading?
Yeah, it's been our experience, and from what I've seen, just speaking to other people practicing, is that it is becoming more affordable depending on where and the consumer you're trying to engage. There are some groups where the consumer still commands a giant premium in television, and as a result, we're not seeing deflation. We're seeing inflation there. But there are other players in other categories where they are experiencing significant efficiencies in their reach and frequency plays for those consumer groups. So I apologize for giving you a wishy-washy answer. It really just depends on the consumer. Going back to, it all kind of starts with the consumer. Who are you trying to reach? How much is it costing you to reach them? And then when they decide to give you their attention, what's the message you're providing to them?
Yeah, definitely. When you talk about the message that you're providing, I wanted to ask a little bit about the creative approach to TV. You've said, there's this time to be able to tell a story, to tell a message on
Mhm.
video, where you don't have that luxury in some digital spaces. So I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how you approach Freshpet's TV marketing or video marketing from a creative standpoint. How do you think about leveraging it due to kind of the benefits of the channel? And has your approach changed, or have you kind of stayed the course in your guiding principles since you started 7 years ago?
Yeah, great question. And it has evolved over time, and what's evolved is really the expression we choose to make to that consumer. The insight around this, like I said, as a category disruptor, we're trying to concept sell the idea of feeding fresh pet food, which is not the majority in the category. And so when we think about our video creative and we think about what's the story we're trying to tell, we have expressed that in different ways. In the very beginning, it was something that we called the letters campaign, which was handwritten letters into our company from consumers, unprompted. This was their own experience feeding Freshpet and seeing the miraculous transformation that their pet has undergone for all of the benefits. I won't go into the details. We've then transitioned from these heartfelt, really kind of heart first messaging into then kind of a head first messaging where we started to talk about the invisible nasties that are inside kind of dry dog food. And so we got very functional attribute based around then the benefits of fresh. And our new campaign now is a little bit more tongue in cheek around There's a group of consumers who get feeding fresh, and there's a group of consumers who, you know what, they're just old school and not going to get it. And that's cool, to each his own. But we've expressed the brand very differently in linear. But when you take it back and you just look at what are we trying to land, there is fresh pet food that belongs in the fridge next to your food. In digital, we have a greater opportunity to start to talk about different content pillars underneath the brand that maybe give a little bit more information than just there's this thing called fresh pet and it belongs in the fridge and it's feeding your pet fresh food. That's very high level, and that's how we think about video at this stage. It will evolve. Our entire approach continues to evolve, but that's where we are as of today.
Yeah, if there's one thing in marketing, it's that change is constant. John, we
Absolutely.
are closing. We're kind of reaching the end of our time here, so I wanted to ask you just a few big picture questions, just so that our audience can, if they walk away from this conversation, that they have maybe a couple big picture things to walk away with. And I'm
Great.
wondering if you can just kind of give us a sense, John, overall, what do you think is video or TV in particular's biggest strength as a channel?
Yeah, it continues to be the most efficient way to reach consumers at mass scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side of that, John, what do you think is TV's biggest weakness at the moment?
Yeah, and it kind of, and I'll just kind of parse out the linear versus connected TV. I think it's the audience, a clearly defined audience that then you're reaching, and I think that's where linear is weak and connected TV is strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about what we can expect to see from Fresh Pets TV marketing in the future. The first part of that question, John, is I'd love to know what are your plans for investment in the CTV space? Are you planning on increasing your investment? What do you expect that's going to look like in the coming months, in the coming year?
Yeah. So the short answer is yes. We participated in the upfronts this year, and some of the discussions actually rolled in connected TV into that. So we are continuing to, and I guess this is maybe a lesson for the broader audience. We have, over the last 7.5 years, we have been refining our marketing approach and our advertising approach. And what we found successful is, yes, a constantly test and learn kind of mentality. But when you find something working and there's a foundational of the plan, continuing to fund that, but making sure that no matter what, you're reserving some dollars on the side for experiments, test and learns, measurements, because I think at the end of the day, like the things that work today, the things that worked back in 2016, are we're doing less of those and doing more of maybe new approaches and new ways of engaging the consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice would you give to a marketer who's also thinking about maybe increasing their budget or thinking about in CTV or thinking about
Mhm.
um, maybe constructing a test to see what is the best kind of approach in that channel?
Yeah. I will tell you there, and inside Freshpet, we have the full support of the organization. We have proven out the return on ad spend, the media and marketing investment dollar, and what that yields in terms of helping us drive business results. That connection is hard to do, but if you're able to unlock a dollar spent yields this in terms of what the broader organization is trying to do, and you prove that out, repeated success, I do believe that's one of the most important game changers for marketing experiments, marketing investments, and the support of the cross functionals, because you need that no matter what, to continue to deliver value to the consumer. It's an entire company effort. It's just not a marketing effort.
Yeah, absolutely. John, you gave us a little bit of a sense as to what Fresh Pets current campaign looks like Some people get it, some people don't. But what can we expect to see from Freshpet's TV marketing, whether on connected TV or on linear? What can audiences, consumers expect to see from that marketing in the future?
Yeah, thank you. And we have another excellent partner that we use to really tell our story in video. And we'll be meeting with them soon to talk about how we evolve this story. But there will be certainly more content. We hope more engaging content, and hopefully, many people get the joke. And then in the end, kind of how do we continue to tell a more robust story around the benefits of fresh pet to both pets and pet parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as a pet parent myself, I appreciate it. John, thank you so much for the time. We're out of time, but it was such a pleasure getting to chat with you and hear all about your approach here. I learned a lot. This has been really great. So thank you again so much for joining us today and sharing all of the knowledge that you have to impart with our audience.
Thanks, Kelsey, and thank you, Marketing Brew.
Thank you again to John and to Freshpet, but we're not done yet. Now I'd like to pass the mic over to Morning Brew's Sonia Gavankar for a conversation with Mountain's Senior Product Marketing Manager. Sonia, take it away.
Thanks, Kelsey. Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here with Jon Zucker, Senior Product Marketing Manager at Mountain. Jon brings his robust digital media strategy expertise to his role, where he's responsible for keeping his fingers on the pulse of the industry and empowering marketers to achieve their goals by aligning with fresh trends, like using the latest innovations in CTV. Jon, thanks so much for joining me today. Let's get right into it with some facts about connected television. Can you explain how CTV is measured and how attribution works on CTV?
Thanks, Sonia. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to just dive right into it. So, just for some background, traditionally, advertisers saw TV as a reach vehicle, and they were measuring reach and using surveys to estimate its impact on upper funnel kind of softer metrics like consideration and purchase intent. But over the past few years, advertisers have realized that with the right technology behind it, connected TV can actually be a really effective performance channel that delivers concrete down funnel outcomes like site traffic, conversions, revenue, app installs, etc. So all performance channels, like we know, they need accurate attribution. Without it, there's really nothing that you can deliver. Then there's nothing you can measure, and there's no direct down funnel business outcomes that you can rely on. So legacy channels like display, search, social, they're all click based, and obviously you can't click a TV. So advertisers have needed a new way to accurately measure the outcomes that they're delivering with this non-click based channel. So this has been a sticking point for a little while in the industry. A recent eMarketer survey, it showed that CTV attribution is actually the number one area that marketers want to see an improvement in. So this isn't just me saying this. This is across the board. People are asking for this. And that makes sense. Traditionally, CTV and even video prior to it on digital channels, they relied on a form of view through attribution. So you set a look back window of, whatever time, let's say 30 days, a person sees your ad, they take an action, and then that video takes credit for that action because it occurred within that period of time. Now, that sounds fine, but when you think about it, the problem here is it doesn't take into account any of your other marketing channels. So let's say somebody saw your TV ad and didn't really do much for them. Then they saw your Instagram ad later. That influenced them. They clicked through it and they went to your channel. View through would say, oh, TV gave you that attribution, that gave you that outcome. But really, it didn't. Instagram did. So this is one of the problems that we at Mountain specifically wanted to fix. That's why we built verified visits. It's our proprietary attribution model, and it adds that extra step in. So now you'll still set that look back window, let's say 30 days or even 14 days. Somebody watches your ad, they visit your site, and then we'll actually look at all the referring sources of other channels there. We'll say, oh, did they click through an Instagram ad to go to your site? Did they click through an email CTA that was your organic email? Something else like that. And any referring source that isn't organic or direct, we get rid of it. We say TV didn't actually drive that outcome, and we shouldn't take credit for it. Instagram should take credit for it. The other channels should take credit for it. And this is really important because a marketer is only going to be able to make decisions off of reporting. And if you're not able to see that your reporting is accurate, then you can't make great decisions. That was a
So this
long-winded
really
answer,
can
but I
enhance
feel strongly about it.
But it really can enhance targeting as well. More data just helps people make more decisions on where their information is being viewed.
Absolutely. It can, in that way, it influences targeting for sure. You have an understanding across your different channels, which channels are working, which channels aren't working, what you need to adjust in the targeting of those channels. But it also helps influence better automation. So if your channel, like Mountain, has automated performance optimizations, will optimize your campaigns thousands of times per day to make sure that you're targeting the right people on the right TV screens at the right times to deliver actions. Now, any sort of algorithmic optimization is only going to be as intelligent as the data that's training it. And so if you're training your algorithm with view through attribution, you might be telling a system saying, oh, this person is actually a great person to target because they delivered an action. When really that person delivered an action because of another channel like Instagram. If you're able to understand which people are actually seeing your TV ads and then taking a direct action, not because of another channel, that's way better data to train your algorithm to then find those people and target them. So ultimately, it just results in your TV driving more net new outcomes than you would have gotten otherwise.
So tell us more about how Mountain's attribution model actually shows marketers CTV's true impact alongside the other performance channels that they're using. You alluded to a little bit, but can you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first part, just with verified visits, the really like the core crux of it is making sure that TV gets the credit that it actually deserves. Again, you're not trying to take credit for an action that a user would have taken because they saw an Instagram ad, they saw it, they clicked through an email ad, a paid search ad, what have you. So it's really trying to make sure that we understand as marketers in our reporting. I served a TV ad to this person, and they took a direct action, and I can feel confident in that. Um, with that, you get reporting that is quote unquote deduplicated. So you can actually look at each of your channels side by side and understand, okay, this one is delivering this type of impact. This is delivering a different type of impact. This is how I should allocate my budget amongst those two channels most effectively to drive the most conversions for my business, drive the most bottom line revenue for my business. Um, that side by side comparison is always going to be really important for marketers, especially for performance marketers. And it's why we've actually we've invested so heavily in our integration with Google Analytics. We've just found that a majority of our marketers use that as their source of truth. And you should be able to look at each channel side by side to be able to make those decisions really easily in one place. On top of that, everybody likes to attribute conversions in their own way. And so we can send in verified visits into Google Analytics, but from there we say, have at it. Use your conversion methodology that you prefer, that you'd use for your other channels. Apply that to TV. That way you can feel really confident that you're measuring the results by the same standards that you measure other channels, and you can make the best decisions possible.
Okay, now that we understand where our visitors are actually coming from and where they're coming straight to CTV, let's focus on other performance metrics that CTV actually provides. What are lesser known places, but equally valuable information that marketers can gain from CTV's detailed reporting?
Absolutely. So we have site traffic, but you can also deliver app installs, return on ad spend, conversions, tie those back to the actual order values to get your return on ad spend, your revenue. But I think one of the most important things is not just the actual metrics you can get out of a performance channel, but how granular the reporting can be to help you make better decisions. And so that's one of the main things that we try to provide and that a great CTV platform should be providing. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on is our detailed audience segment report. So if you're on Mountain, you can build your perfect audience using 85,000 different segments. And then you can go in and it can actually look at performance based on every single segment that you've seen that you're activating against. What is that certain high intent dog food purchaser? What is that segment delivering in terms of site traffic and conversions and revenue versus X interest, Y purchase behavior, purchase history, etc. And this is really cool because this lets you understand who exactly your buyer is, and then you bring those insights to your other channels. So a lot of other paid social channels, that's pretty popular for performance marketing. They don't offer that level of granularity. You build your audience from all these different segments. It's great. But then when you get your reporting, it's just on that total audience. Here, you can do the same thing, but on TV, look at the different segments that work, see what's working, and then bring those insights to your other channels to make those more effective as well. So that's the most exciting one, in my opinion. We also have reporting by TV network. So if you're doing a linear TV buyout as a complement, you now know which one of those are most effective, which are driving outcomes. We also offer a level of incrementality reporting on your the conversions you're actually delivering. So that's an automated control versus exposed methodology. I won't get into too much detail on it because I can nerd out and it'll probably bore a lot of people on this call. But it's a
That'll be a
really great way
podcast
of
that we do
seeing.
later.
Okay, great. I can't wait. I'm going to hold you to that. I'd love to come back on and nerd out. But it's a great way to see what are the conversions you're driving with your business that you otherwise would not have driven without TV campaigns. And it's just a really great, clean, transparent way of measuring that.
Well, attribution and performance, they don't exist in silos. So how does the attribution and performance flywheel work together on CTV and get marketers the data that they're actually looking for, data that can help them boost performance in web traffic, conversions, et cetera, all that kind of holistic planning that needs to happen?
Absolutely. So I'll say this is probably a multi-part answer. The first is that automation piece that I spoke to earlier. Just on your own, just TV alone, performance television, you're teaching the algorithm with the best possible data that's been deduplicated from your other channels to make sure that you're honing in on people who wouldn't have visited your site from other marketing channels. So that's just automatically making your TV campaigns as valuable as they possibly can be for delivering site traffic, conversions, and revenue. The second is that audience segment report I was talking to just a few seconds ago, that you're getting the learnings of who is the audience, who is responding to your advertising, and then taking action in the most efficient and effective way possible. You take those learnings that are more granular on CTV than you can get otherwise or anywhere else, and you bring that to those other channels. So you're bringing that to Meta, you're bringing that to LinkedIn, you're bringing that to the way that you're influencing your keyword targeting on paid search, and that's all making it a lot better. The last piece I'll say that's been really cool, while we don't take credit as a channel for outcomes that come from other marketing channels, done a bunch of studies and seen that there is a halo effect of adding TV into your overall marketing mix. And that's something that I think a lot of marketers have been finding to be pretty exciting. So yes, we won't go in and we won't take credit for a site visit and subsequent conversion that came from a paid search ad. But we saw that on average, marketers who added TV to their mix who didn't have it before saw that after 90 days, their paid search went up by 23% on average. And when I say 23%, their conversion rates. So now they're converting at a 23% higher rate with paid search. Paid social went up by 9% on average. And for many marketers, it was higher. So that's just a really exciting thing to see that not only you're going to deliver immediate impact with your TV campaigns, but you're making your other marketing channels more effective as well, just by having TV in the mix. They don't have to do that heavy lifting. So when you think about, paid social, for example, I look at most of it on my phone. I'm definitely addicted to Instagram. I have this app that actually it asks me, "Are you sure you want to go on Instagram?" And I have to say yes because I'm kind of addicted. And I go. I'm supposed to go on for 30 minutes a day. I definitely don't. I definitely go on for more. But when I'm on there, I'm scrolling constantly. And if an ad really has to catch my attention, it has maybe a second to stop my thumb. So if I'm not familiar with that brand ahead of time, it's going to be pretty hard to get me to stop my thumb. But if I saw their ad on TV in a non-skippable environment against premium television content when I'm watching, let's say, ESPN or NBC or Peacock, I'm familiar with that brand. I know their story. I know their products. I've already had that consideration in mind. So when I'm seeing them later on my phone, I just need to have that immediate recognition, that recall, and then I'm there and I'll stop my thumb and maybe I'll consider and I'll click through. So that's just another nice thing, is that whole rising tide raises all ships situation. It's just the way that people experience different types of media. It just makes it a lot easier to convert them.
Okay, so you've convinced a lot of marketers out there that CTV is for them. What is the best advice or best practices that you would offer to ensure that they are maximizing the benefits of CTV in their overall marketing strategies?
It's a great question, and it's one that we get asked every single day. So I'm excited to talk about it. There's the two main pieces that you have control over when you're doing a TV campaign, outside of deciding what technology you're using to activate your campaigns, are really audience and creative. And so those are the two levers that our marketers are using every single day and considering and looking at reporting and making decisions. And so there's some great best practices for each one. I'll start with audiences. So audiences, you really want to hone in on your target audience. And I know that sounds obvious. That's kind of what everybody says. But TV audiences can be absolutely massive. And there's an important understanding of knowing how big is my audience supposed to be versus the amount of reach that I plan on actually achieving within that audience. So let's say you you plan out a budget and your projected reach is 1 million people. And that's a million people. That's fantastic. You're going to try to optimize those to convert as many people to site visitors and then conversions and return on ad spend afterwards. But if you pick an audience of, let's say, 70 million people, you're probably not honing in on the highest intent people and setting yourself up to deliver the best performance. So you really might not need to select as many audience segments to build your audience, but really focus on just your top 3, 4, 5 segments that are the highest intent, that have that past history of purchasing a competitive product, and then set yourself up to deliver, even though it's a smaller audience, more effective reach against that audience to then deliver more conversions. So a rule of thumb that I like to say is look at your projected audience size and what you're expecting to spend and then reach against that audience, and make sure you're trying to reach at least 5% of that total available audience if possible. If you're going to be reaching smaller than that, that's totally fine. You could either make your audience smaller or you start with that wider audience, but keep an eye on performance and cut away your segments until you're reaching that minimum 5%. I think that'll help people from the get-go. On the creative side, there's quite a bit of analysis that we've done. There are certain things just from a best practice standpoint of try to keep a CTA at the end. Try to keep your website URL available on screen, maybe in the bottom corner, or at least your logo, just so people actually know where they're supposed to go at the end of your ad to go take an action. One of the things that we've seen also really work well is trying to make sure that you're speaking specifically to your audience. And so there's a brand, Rumple. They've done a fantastic job of creating ads, and we've done a lot of co-research pieces with them. And one of the things that was really interesting is they had this holiday campaign. Background, Rumple, they create these fantastic outdoor blankets. Highly recommend, just to give them a short plug. They had 2 audiences. One was a really campy audience. These are people who are outdoorsy. They go on hikes. This is their thing. The other is people who are aspirationally outdoorsy. So they might be thinking of themselves, they want to be a hiker, but really they're spending more time in their backyard. And so they have these 2 different segments, and they created 2 versions of the same commercial. One is a group of young friends. They pack up their blankets, they go out, they go for a hike, they have an adventure. The second one, they just changed the first 3 to 5 seconds of the commercial where that same group of friends hangs out in a house under the blankets, drinking hot cocoa and tea inside, and then they go outside and go on their adventure. And just doing that small little tweak, it's the same day of shooting. You're maybe picking up 2 or 3 different shots. It doesn't cost you any extra money, but you can speak organically to that audience. And in doing so, they're able to see the conversion rates for both of those audiences go up significantly because they were speaking to them and who they are as people and what inspires them to make a purchase. So that's a big one. I'll say my last piece, just because I know we're already running a bit long on time, is it's just the way that you decide to activate campaigns. So on television, you can do prospecting. So this is targeting new audiences. And then there's also retargeting existing audiences. These are previous site visitors, et cetera. We found that audiences or advertisers who use both prospecting and retargeting deliver twice the amount of return on ad spend on average than those who do prospecting alone. So it's just a great way of understanding, yes, we all want to bring in new customers to the fold, but it's also really important to remember that you want to increase the lifetime value of your customers because that's another great way to keep revenue and make sure that your business is constantly growing. I would say the last piece, and I promise is the last piece, and then I'll shut up, is it's important to be evergreen with your TV activations. So there's just a common theme of people wanting to run flighted campaigns, and that's understandable. That's kind of the traditional avenue for doing so. But we found that when you keep a consistent TV presence, you're going to drive not only consistent revenue throughout the year, but you're going to set yourself up to really pop during those seasonal moments that drive the most revenue. So the holidays is a great time. We actually, same brand Rumple, they had 2 years where they ran TV campaigns. One, they just started in October, and then they delivered their TV campaigns and drove consistent revenue. It was great. The next year, they led into their holidays with their same seasonal campaign. They just started it earlier, and it kind of went in. By having it go into the holidays earlier, the year over year, they were able to deliver significantly more revenue and a higher ROAS while increasing their budget. So it was pretty amazing to see. Typically, when you increase your budget on a performance platform, you keep about the same ROAS, the same efficiencies. That's a great goal. You might see a slight increase, which is also great. Here, they blew the ROAS out of the water. And that's just because their customers were already primed and ready to make a purchase. They were visiting their site. And then once they got to that point where like, oh my God, I have to do my holiday shopping, Rumple was ready. They knew they wanted to go buy these blankets. So
John,
that's my spiel.
I love having these conversations. You're telling us so much about what Mountain has to offer, but you're actually planning out our whole strategy with case studies as well. Thank you so much for all this information, for the insights. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm ready to, put pen to paper and start my strategizing for the next year.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John. This was really interesting. Kelsey, back to you.
Thank you, Sonia. That's all the time we have for today. As always, we really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your thoughts and questions in the chat. We'll be hosting a new virtual event over here every month. So join us back here in November for a conversation focused on the creator economy. Until then, we'll see you in the newsletter. Have a great day.